We are using WLAN, right? Yes. WLAN. This is completely my Wi-Fi. I'm using WPA2 and it is my password and encryption I'm using, security and MAC address of my device. Right. My support mode. And where is DHCP in this? Service we have. Mm. So here you can see my public IP address, which was provided by the ISP itself. And you can see the connection is automatic and I have a static IP too, where I can configure that. It is DHCP. These are all the devices which are connected to my device. So you can see the channel number, RSID, the devices right now connected, their IP addresses, their MAC addresses, the frequency they are getting, and the neighbor networks. You can see my neighbor networks also. Wi-Fi is here. Where the configure the internet connection IPv4 I'm getting. DHCP get automatic protocol version IPv4. So here you can see get static IP. Okay, static IP. There will be a starting IP and routing address also will be there. Firewalls, in-bit firewalls will be there. Parental control will be there. NATing will be there. Okay. Or else you can see, let me take TP-Link router. So here, can you see the DHCP? My device, it was auto. So can you able to see that? So here, DHCP is enabled. So it will be configured by your ISP itself. And here they have written starting IP 192.168.1.100 and ending IP is 192.168.1.199. So address, lease time, default gateway, DNS servers, everything they have configured. Okay. So whenever you connect to this network, they'll start providing the IP address from these range only, 100 to 199 only, you'll get the IP address. So there will be a starting IP and end IP. So in between only, they'll start assigning the IP address. So whenever you connect to any device, the device will go and do some broadcasting here. Okay. So the DHCP broadcasting will be performed and accordingly, it will start assigning the IP address. So most of the time when you go for the interview level, they'll ask you, explain me the DHCP process. So DHCP process is nothing but here how the DHCP knows the system required the IP address and how it is assigning, what basis, on what basis it is giving the IP address. So what information it is collecting from the client. So all these things will be taken. So actually the process is DORA process it will perform. Okay. So imagine this is your device. Imagine this is your device. So whenever you connect to the network, you'll just enter the Wi-Fi password. You'll just enter the Wi-Fi password and you'll connect to the network, right? So automatically you're getting the IP address. You're not manually assigning the IP address. Here, automatically it is assigning the IP address. So how these IP address is assigned is, first your device will go for the broadcasting, which is nothing but it sends some discover packet to all the devices in this network. Example here, if you take, uh, we have a device. So now a device is connected to this network, this router. So when you connect this router, automatically this A device will send a DHCP request, discover packets to all the devices, B device will reject that packet and C device will reject that packet. Why? Why? Because they are not the servers who is providing the IP here. So that is why they reject that packets. And who is giving the response for that packet? Router. Why? Because router is the one who is providing the IP address with the help of DHCP protocol. So as I shown you just now that ISP has configured the DHCP and it has given some starting IP and ending IP of private. See, if you observe, they have given the private IPs only. So what are the private IPs range? Do you remember that? In class C, what is the private IP range? 0.12, 192.168.255.255. So within this range only, they'll provide the IP address to you. So in my device, imagine they have given 192.168.1.1 to 192.168.1.250. Example, 250 means only these IP addresses it will start assigning. So obviously 1.1 will be assigned to your gateway, which is nothing but your router. And for this, it will provide 1.2, for this 1.3, for this 1.4. Or how many devices it will connect depends on that. It will start assigning the IP address in a random way or sequentially it will give. It's up to the router level. So like that, it can provide up to 1.250 addresses. Means you can connect 250 devices to this network. What if it is more than 250? What you will do? If it is more than 250, what you will do? Hmm? Imagine they have configured only 1 to 250 IPs. What if your network is having more than 250 IPs or 250 devices? The public IP is not used. Public IP will be the same for all the devices, not public IP. I told you yesterday. Exactly, it will go for class B. So as I told you, depends on your network range, you can go with the classes. So why we are getting class C range of IP every time? Because we won't connect more than 250 devices here. At most, we connect more than 10 to 15 devices. That's it. Right. So in organizational level or in the institution level, they use class B or class A IP addresses. Right. So why? Because there are more devices there. So you can use class B. So in class B, how many devices or how many host addresses you can assign in class B? How many host addresses you can assign from class B? So there will be two host addresses. So what is the size of that host addresses? 16, right? So it's 2 power 16, 65,536 addresses you can assign. So you can connect 65,536 or 34 actually, minus 2 will be there. So that many IP addresses you can assign to the devices. So same here also. So in our network, they have configured 1 to 250. So in between only your DHCP server will provide. So what to get that IP, what our device will do is our device is a client here. Now the router will act as a server. So router is as a DHCP server and our device is a DHCP client. So now my device need an IP address. So it will do a discover packet. It will send a discover packet. So to all the devices and ask for the IP address. And in response, router will give the offer saying that I'm having this of IP address with me. If you want, you can take that. Then our device will go for the acknowledge request. It will request, okay, I'm okay with that IP, so please provide that IP. Now the router will take all your details like your MAC address, everything, and then it start providing the acknowledgement saying that this is the IP address which I provided to you, and this is your channel number, and this is the DNS server, and this is the DHCP server, and this is the default gateway. All that information will be provided to you. So that is what happened here exactly. So first, this is the client. So hi, will you please give me the IP address? So it will send to the DHCP. So actually it performs the broadcasting first. So means it don't know. Means my device doesn't know like who is providing the IP address in my network, right? So obviously what I'll do a broadcasting here. Broadcasting in the sense I'll do some Discord packet to all the devices. So in that, which device is providing the IP address will respond for that packet. So obviously my router will give the response. Why? Because uh, he's the one who is providing the IP, right? So the router is the one who is providing the IP address to me. So that is how it gives the response. And now it will give the offer. Sure, I have some XYZ IPs in my server. Obviously in DHCP server, they have the list of IP address, right? Starting from 192.168.1.1 to end IP is what we have 192.168.1.100 IPs. So in between, it has one IP. That IP is providing to the client, and client, yes, I accept. Kindly issue that XYZ IP to me and send the remaining configuration. So that is what happened here. And DHCP server will collect the information about the client and start assigning the IP address. And if you remember, remaining configuration they mentioned here. So we'll discuss. Just remember that the remaining configuration that I'll show you. Right. So this complete process is called DORA process. Just remember, it's a DORA. Discover, offer, request, and acknowledgement. Okay. So this is what DORA process. Okay. So by performing the DORA process, getting the IP address. So which IP address you're getting? Public IP or private IP? Which IP address the DHCP server is assigning to you? Private IP or public IP? Hmm? What about others? So actually it's private IP, not public IP. So public IP is directly configured by the ISP itself to your router. So your router is start assigning the private IP to your device with the help of DHCP protocol. Even you can see that. I'll show you in practical how it works. Let me take a tool called Wireshark. So we have a tool called Wireshark here. It's a network analyzer tool, you can say, or it's a packet capturing tool. So whatever the packets I'm getting into my system and whatever the packets I'm sending to other means outgoing and incoming packets will be captured by this tool. Only my system, not my network. Only my system packets can be captured. If I want to capture my network packets, then you need to make this to the Prometheus mode. That we'll see in next sessions. When it comes to this, you can just go to the Google, type Wireshark, download. We'll see the website. You can download for Windows. You can install. It's a normal installation. So now this is the interface you can see. And in that, what is my network interface? If I ask you, what is your network interface? What is your answer? If I ask you, what is your network interface? What will be your answer? Anyone? So actually, it's Wi-Fi. So currently, I'm connected to the Wi-Fi, and this will be my network interface. If you're connected to the Bluetooth and sending, then Bluetooth will be your network interface. Or if you connected to the any Ethernet cable, then your network interface will be the Ethernet. And you can see the traffic in this. Can you see the traffic? So these are all the interfaces only. I have virtual boxes and VMwares in my system. So that is why it is showing all these interfaces. So obviously you can see the interfaces. So in this Wi-Fi is my interface. So obviously my packets, whatever the packets I'm getting into my system and whatever the packets of sending from my system, outgoing and incoming packets will be shown in Wi-Fi only, will be handled by the Wi-Fi only, right? So I'm trying to capture Wi-Fi packets. So you can see these are all the packets which are sending from my system. So in this, I'm looking for a DHCP packet. So you can see here you're getting the UDP TCP packets. So in this, if I want to see the DHCP, it will be a bit difficult for me. You can see here Zoom. Just now I connected to the Zoom, right? So Zoomers is there. It's working. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use filter. So in the top, you can see a filter bar here. So in this, I'm just typing the protocol which I want to look for. So I'm looking for DHCP. Enter. So now here you can see, is there any DHCP packet going on? Is there any DHCP packet going? No. So there is no DHCP process running in my backend. So when I release my IP, maybe it may disconnect me from the network, but again, I'll connect back. Okay. If you see, I'm having the IP address already, which is 1.9, right? So just see here. What I'll do is I'll try to release my IP. See in the backend, I'll just release my IP. IP config slash release. Hmm? Is my screen visible for you? Guys, am I audible? Is my screen visible for you? All right. So if you observe, there is no IP. IP was released, means I disconnected from the network, means I removed my IP address. But if you see, when I go with IP config again, now is there IP address? No IP address is assigned. Did I did anything here? Did I configure the IP address manually? Hmm? So previously, if you see, when I released the IP address, it was released. After few seconds, automatically my system sends some Discover packet. Can you see the Discover packet? First, I release the IP address. Now it send the Discover packet. Can you see? So again, it is broadcasting 0.0.0.0, 255.255.255.255. I told you, broadcasting IPs, right? So where it went, 1.1. Who is 1.1? My router. And who is MSI.local? My system, right? So first it send the Discover packet, and the router is giving the offer for me. So source is now router and destination is my device. So router is giving the offer for me. And then I'm requesting for that IP address and then given the acknowledgement. So if you open the packet, I'll have the IP address here. So what is the IP address it is given for me? 192.168.1.9. Right. So automatically it assigned, if you observe. I didn't do anything. Just I released the IP address. For a while, it waited and then it sent the Discord packet, offer, request, and acknowledgement. It got the IP. Means in your system, DHCP is automatically assigned. If you go to your network settings, open network settings and internet, if you see your Wi-Fi state, you see your Wi-Fi status, go to the properties. So is the DHCP enabled? So if you see the IP settings, IP assignment is assigned by the DHCP, and that too automatic. Automatically, it will assign the IP address to your device. So no need of going to manually and getting the IP address. No need of doing all these things. So if you enable the DHCP server in your gateway, so whenever your device requires the IP address, when you connect to this network, the DHCP look for that continuously. And if your device is requiring any IP address, it will assign that IP address. That is how the things work. Is that clear, everyone? So how these devices are getting the IP address? Is that clear, everyone? And what is the process it is going? Discover, offer, request, and acknowledge. Is that clear, everyone? How these IP addresses are assigned to your device? Everyone, right? So what if there is no DHCP? Imagine there is no DHCP. How will you assign the address? If you go to the organization, imagine you're working for a company. On the first day you join the company. So the network administrator or the network admin will come to you and say that, So this is the IP address just assigned to your device. They'll tell you, means they'll tell you to manually assign the IP address. They'll give the IP, but they'll tell you to assign the IP address. So where you will assign that IP address in your device, where exactly the IP address will be assigned in your device, means manually. Automatically the DHCP is providing for you. Fine. But when it comes to the manually, they said manually assign the IP address, where you'll assign that IP. Imagine you're using Ethernet, not Wi-Fi. If you're using Wi-Fi, yeah, DHCP is assigning that. Your router will taking care of that and it is assigning. But what if you use Ethernet? Means you're not using any router here. You're just connecting the cable, Ethernet cable to your device. At the time, how will you do that? Hmm? Any idea? You got my question? Guys, are you there? Or manually, how will you assign the IP? So simple. Guys, am I audible to you? I can't see any responses. But what? Yeah, all right. So simple. You can go to the open network settings here. Okay. Or else you can use a command prompt from run also. Okay. So simple, like you can go in this way, or you can use this one. Run, right? When you use Windows plus R button, you can see the run prompt, right? So in this, just type ncpa.cpl. You can run this command directly. So try to learn some shortcuts. So even the interviewer will be impressed when you use the shortcuts keys. So you can go in this way. You can type ncpa.cpl in run and go with OK. So it will open the network sharing or network connections here. Or else you can go to the open network settings. Here you can see the Ethernet. In Ethernet, you can go to the change adapter options. And in this, you can see that. So you can see these are all the network settings I have. These are all the network adapters we have. So this is related to the VMware virtual box. So just ignore them. Okay, why I'm having these many adapters in the sense I'm using the VMware and virtual box in my system. So you can see that virtual adapters there. So here Ethernet we have. You can just enable the Ethernet and you can go to the IPv4 here. Can you see the IPv4? So just go to the, just double click on that. So here you need to manually assign the IP address. Now, obviously it's 192.168.0.10, imagine they have given. So the subnet mask will be the 255.255.255.0. Why? Because three network IDs and one host ID. That is how it represents. And gateway will be the starting IP, 192.168.0.1. Right. So obviously someone asked about the sir 8.8.8. That is what default DNS server IP. 8.8.8.8 is a default DNS server IP server. So everything will be configured by your ISP only in your router. But I'm telling you when it a manual scenario. And even these IPs also will provided by your network administrator. Just you need to come to this part and you need to assign the IP address. So this is how you're getting the IP address. This is how you can manually assign the IP address. So if there is no DHCP in the sense, you need to manually assign the IP address to your device. So that will be a bit difficult for all the devices every time. So they use these routers to do that activity. Got it? And as I told you, the remaining configuration, right? So what is this remaining configuration is? If you observe here, if you see here, when I go with IP config, enter. So what are the details you're getting here, like about your Wi-Fi? So you're getting the IPv6, IPv4, subnet mask, and gateway. Right? These are the details, or these are the information you are getting. Right? When I go with IP config space, there is a space /alt. Even we discussed this in the MAC address point also. So can you see what information you're getting here? What is your network adapter is? You're getting the network adapter. Like as I told you, Wi-Fi chipsets will be there. So because of that chip, only you're getting the internet and you're getting the chipset model and your physical address. Is the DHCP enabled? Yes. Is that auto configuration? Yes. IPv6, IPv4, subnet mask, lease time, when your IP address is going to expire. Again, it will check that automatically at the time. Again, DHCP server and provide the IP address and gateway IP. And can you see the gateway IP and DHCP server IP and even your DNS server IP is same? If you observe 1.1, 1.1. Why? Why DHCP server and DNS server and gateway IPs are same? Hmm? Why they are same? Anyone? Why? Because all these things are configured in your router only. We don't have any separate server here. We're not going to use any separate server. Everything is configured in your router itself. So that's why you're getting the gateway IP only for DHCP, DNS, and default gateway. Got it? Is that clear? So this is the remaining configuration. So this information will be stored in your router also. So by taking your MAC address and all these details, it is providing the IP address to you. So this is how you're getting the IP address to your device. So, and it is running on a port 67 and 68. So the DHCP server, so sorry, it's a protocol, right? So DHCP protocol is running on port 68 and 67. So 68 is for client, 67 is for server. So again, we have two port numbers, 67 and 68, remember. 67 is DHCP server and 68 is for DHCP client, means to our device. Okay. So we have two port numbers here. They'll ask you about the port numbers also. Be careful. Okay. So this is how you guys are getting the IP address. Is that clear? Everyone? Any doubts? Just let me know. Is that clear? Yes, no, say something. Any doubts? That's great. So now we'll go with another protocol called so now we'll go with another protocol called DNS. So can anyone tell me what is DNS here? Anyone? Great. It's a domain name system. So what is the use of this domain name system? What it do actually? Where IP addresses are called with host names. Translate the domain names into the IP address. Great. So it resolves name to IP or IP to name. So it converts the domain name to the IP address. So why it has converting that? Why it is converting that? We can't remember every IP address. Okay. So simple. I'll take an example like your phone book. So phone book, right? Your contacts. In your mobile, you have contacts, right? So is it possible for you guys to remember all the contacts in your mobile? Maybe 200 to 500 contacts will be there. Is that possible to remember the number of each contact? No, we can't remember, right? So what we do, we'll save that number with name, right? So you can recognize based on the name, right? So we can't remember, that's why you have given the name. Same here also, you can't remember the IP, so you have given name to that domain. So you can remember as facebook.com, instagram.com, or google.com, you can remember in that way, but you can't remember that as a IP address basis, right? So why we are need to know the IP address, why we need to know the number instance? For example, take this phone book as an example. As I told you, you're saving the number with the name, okay? But when you dial to a person, for example, you saved my number as Akil or Akil sir or something. Some people will save as Akil, some people will save as Akility, or someone like different names they'll say. But when you dial to this person, is your carrier, is your carrier taking that call based on the name or number? Is your carrier, means the tower or anything, is that taken based on the name or number? A number only, right? Not by name. Same here also, when you look for the facebook.com or google.com, the server will recognize the, the domain based on the IP only, not by name. So now to convert this name to IP, it looks for the domain name system. You getting my point? Whenever you surf anything, facebook.com or anything from your device, will it go to the server? Server can't recognize based on the name. So now it will ask for the DNS server. So what is the IP address of this domain? Then DNS server will look in the DNS records, and then it will find the IP address of the domain, and then it will give to the server. So this is the things happen here actually. Got it? So DNS is nothing but domain name system, which resolves the name to IP. So human access the information online through the domains. So web browser interact through the internet protocol address, which is the IP address. So DNS translate these domain names to the IP address. So browsers can load the internet resources, right? And how these DNS work? Is that clear, everyone? What is DNS? Clear? So now, how these DNS work? Means how these servers get that IP address? That we'll see. So here, let me go for a image. Okay, here we have. Can you see? Here, if you take this image, right? So we have it actually use 4 DNS servers here to load a web page. For example, from your system, this is your system. Okay, you are requesting for facebook.com. Example I'm taking. So when you request this facebook.com, first actually our system, whatever the laptop or whatever you have, that will go and look in the local host file. There is a local host file. So where it is configured with the DNS, so it will look in local host. If it is not find in the local host, for example, this is the first time you're looking for facebook.com. So your local host is also not having the IP address of this domain. So local host in the sense, it will be there in your system itself. I think somewhere near Windows C, system 32, somewhere it is there actually. So ETC, see where is ETC? Or there is a drivers. So in drivers, you have ETC, and can you see the host file? You can't open that, but yeah, there is a host file. So where this DNS servers will be configured here. So even this host file is not having the IP address, then it will go to the DNS resolver. So here you can see. So actually this example, if you take, I'm looking for robotlegate.blog. This is a website. So I went for the DNS resolver and asking for the IP address. So now the DNS resolver is also, or you can say DNS resolver or DNS recursor. Okay, it's a kind of a librarian. Example, take that recursor as a library. So who is asked to find a particular book somewhere in library. Now this DNS recursor is a server designed to receive the queries from the client machine through applications such as your browsers. So this recursor will be responsible for making the additional request in order to satisfy the client DNS query and find that IP and giving to that. What if DNS recursor is also not having the information about that IP? Even DNS resolver is also not having the information about this IP. What it do? Now DNS resolver will take the responsible and forward that request to the root server. So this was the first server root server. We call this as a root name server or root server, you can say. This is the first translating, means resolving human readable host name into the IP addresses. And it can be thought of like an index in a library that points to different racks of books. Typically, it serves as a reference to the other more specific locations. So like when you go to a library, you want a Java book in library. So where you'll search, look for what are the index we have. So in index, in which page we have this topic like that will look right. Same here also root server will place like that on it. So it will give a location where that server has been hosted. Now this root server will give that information of the location of the domain. And now DNS server will store that information also, whatever the root server has given, store that information also. And next it will forward to the TLD. So TLD is nothing but here top level domain. So we call this as a top level domain. So top level domain is nothing but here. For example, here we took the facebook.com. Right? So here .com, right? This is what we call as a TLD. Means generic names will be maintained by the TLD only, like .com, .in, .org, .edu, like all these things. So only .com related information. Okay, so like a specific rack in the means it gives the where the location of the domain, and it went to that particular rack now, and that rack is nothing but TLD in library. Okay, so obviously my domain is facebook.com. So now it will go to the .com rack. In that rack, it look for is there Facebook or not. Just it will look for the Facebook, right? So TLD server can be thought as of a specific rack of books in a library. So this name server is the next step in search for a specific IP address and its host address, right? So simply it looks in the .com rack where this file is available or not. That information will be collected and given to the DNS resolver. And next DNS resolver will go to the final server, which we called as a authoritative server. Authoritative name server or a server. So this was the final name server. Can be thought of a dictionary on a rack of books. So in which a specific name can be translated into its definition. So the authoritative name server is the last stop in the name server query. So if the authoritative name server has access to the requested record, it will return the IP address for the requested host name back to the DNS recursor that made the initial request here. All right. So now authoritative server will look in the records and check is that domain is available or not. If it is available, then take the IP address of that and give to the DNS resolver. Now DNS resolver will give to the browser and browser will connect to the server of facebook.com or robotlegate. So this is the first time only. This will be happen for the first time. Means if the DNS resolver is not having the IP address, then only it will go to the root server, TLD server, an authoritative server. If not, it will get that from the DNS resolver itself, or else in localhost itself, it will find that. And now the DNS resolver is having the information about this domain, right? So next time your device will go to the DNS resolver, DNS resolver will give the IP address here itself. No need to do all these activities again. For the first time only, it collects all this information. So for the first time you're requesting for the domain, so it will go to the each and every domain, each and every server. So we have different DNS servers here. So these are the 4 DNS servers which are involved in loading a page. It involved loading a web page, these 4 servers. So these 4 servers will have the domain information. Now my question for you guys is, how these 4 servers knows the domain information? How they know that? How they are getting the domain information? Who are managing these domains again? Is that clear how the DNS is working, everyone? Is that clear for you guys? Yes or no? Right. So now my question for you guys is, like, how they know this? Like how the authoritative server know the IP address, and how this TLD knows that generic names, how this name server knows the location of the domain. How? Who manages this domain? So these domains are managed by the RIR. Just now I have told you, regional internet registries we have. So the regional internet registries will manage your domain IP addresses and your domain information. So were established to assume this regional allocation and management role in cooperation with IANA. And there are 5 regional internet registries globally. And if your server is maintained in this region, then it is responsible by ARIN, American Regional Internet Registries, Latin American, African, European, and Asian. Total, we have 5 regional internet registries. These regional internet registries will manage and maintain your domain, IP or domain records, whatever it may be. Okay. Is that clear? So whenever you request anything, the authoritative server will go to the, so this authoritative server will go to the DNS server. So what this DNS server contain? DNS records. So just now I told you an example, like library. So if you want a thermodynamic book, or else if you want a Python or Java book, where you look that in library, in which rack you will find that? Will you find that in the mechanical rack, or will you find that in the computer science rack? The Java book or Python book, where you can find them? In computer rack, right? Same here also, the DNS server will go to the DNS records, and DNS records will maintain the domain information in record base. In record base. Okay. So for example, I need the IP address of the domain. So where I need to look for in the DNS records is A record. A record maintain the IPv4 address. If I need IPv6 of the domain, then I need to go for AA record. Like that, we have a different records which manages the domains here. So I'll give some of the important DNS records. It's very important to know about these records. So in future, when you're performing the DNS enumeration, means finding the domain names, you need to extract these DNS records only. So in which record I need to look for the IP address of the domain? In which record I need to look for the IP address of the domain? A record. In which record? IPv6 A record. CNAME means alias name. For example, you have facebook.com or fb.com you can use, which loads the same. So is there any alias name or canonical name you can go with? And if your domain is having any mail exchangers, for example, if you're working for TCS, obviously on your name there will be like if I'm working in TCS, so akil@tcs.com means the domain will having the mail servers again, mail exchangers. So what mail exchanger the domain they are using, you can find that information. Name servers means where the domain is located. You'll get the domain name servers also. Pointer records is nothing but the reverse IP lookups. You can find the IP to name, name to IP will be the pointer record. So primary server or secondary server by the start of authoritative records, service location record, text record. So like that you have a different DNS records here, which maintain the domain information. For example, there is a tool, inbuilt tool in your Windows itself, which is NS lookup. Example, NS lookup. Okay. So here, when I type this NS lookup, so just set type equal to. So now let me go with MX. So when I type MX, what information it will give? What MX will do? What information it will give? What information MX will give for me? The mail exchanger, the mail information, what they are using, right? So simply enter that and go with the target domain. For example, uh, what is there any domain you guys want to look for? Any domain? Which college you guys are belongs to? Take any domain. Let me take the tesla.com here. This is my domain. So when I type that, so I got the mail server what they're using. They are using Outlook. Okay, if you take my company, segment.com example. When I type this, okay, also ERSH. So we are using Zoho mail server. Okay, so we are using a Zoho mail server. So like that, you can find that. If you want IP address information, now you need to set type equal to, in which record I can find the IP address? Which record I need to look for to get the IP address? A record, right? So simply I'll type A here, enter, and go with your target. So this is my IP address, my domain IP addresses. So like that, you can find the records information. So the authoritative server will request to the DNS server, and DNS server will go and check in DNS records. In DNS record, it will go and check in A record and get the IP address and give to the DNS resolver. So that is how the things work. Is that clear, everyone? How DNS is working? What are the DNS records? So there are many records you can see. These are the common DNS record types we have. Yes. Is there any doubts related to the DNS functionality? Any doubts? So I hope it's clear for you guys. All right. All right. Now let's move on to the another topic. Let me go with uh, another topic called OS. So how many of you are aware of this OS operating system? Hmm? Why is this session boring for you guys? As we discussed previously, you know what is OS. So OS is nothing but it's an operating system, right? So if you take the architecture of operating system, first we'll have the application, then we'll go with the shell, then we'll go with the kernel, and then we'll have the hardware. This is a structure of the OS architecture. So OS is a software here. So like it is easier to create an operating system in pieces. Much we can break down to larger, smaller, and manageable sub-problems. So operating system is used to analyze and understand the queries what given by the user and give the output in that way itself. So that's why we call this as an interface between the user and a computer here, right? And where human interact with the operating system, and operating system will use the application, and that application will be managed between the kernel and shell, and it will go with the hardware. So as an application, you know what is an application. So it's a piece of software where set of programs and instructions, right? And when it comes to the shell, so shell in operating system acts as an interface for the user to interact with the computer. So the shell can be a command line interface or a graphical interface. Okay. Where user can interact between the application and the kernel part here. And when it comes to the kernel, what is kernel here? Kernel is a core part of operating system, which is responsible for managing the resources of the system, such as your memory, CPU, input and output devices, file management, uh, process management, memory management. All these things will be handled by the kernel only. For example, if I'm copying a file from one system to, one folder to another folder. For example, there is a file in my system. Example, let me take this file. I want to copy this file from my this folder to, I'm taking to another folder. Okay. So if I want to do this here, first the kernel will go with the system call and check is there memory is available in that particular folder or not, and where it should be stored in that hard disk and everything. So means it plays a crucial role in the operating system where to manages all these things. So that is what the kernel do here. And hardware, as you know, your keyboard, mouse, hard disk, RAM, everything, right? So these are all together will work for the operating system. Got it? And just you have different types of kernels and architectures, right? So before going with that, my question for you guys is, we have two variants of like two types of operating systems, I can say, which is Windows and Linux only. Now present, we have Windows and Linux. So if you take your iOS, Android, everything comes under the Linux part only. So now tell me, in this, which one is more secure, Windows or Linux? Which one is more secure, Windows or Linux? Linux. Sure. So why Linux? You know, Linux is an open source here. You know that open source means it's free. No need to purchase that. And Windows is paid one. Around some 16,000 rupees you need to pay and get the Windows system. So on what basis you're saying Linux is secure than Windows. Means you're getting a unsecured one, means you're paying for an unsecured one and using them. And where I'm not paying anything and getting a secured one. So on what basis you said that? Like why Linux? Yeah, I tell you the Linux is more secure than Windows. But on what basis you're saying that? On what basis you're saying that Linux is more secure than Windows? Yeah, iOS is belongs to the Linux, Android is belongs to Linux. That's fine. I'm asking you why Linux is more secure than Windows. Anyone? Well, because a Linux here is open source. It's free. You'll get the Linux operating. Like we are going to install Kali Linux in next session. Okay, so we are going to install the Kali Linux in next session. So you need to have an idea, like how this Linux works and why it is secure. When it comes to Windows, it's paid one, and why it is not secure. So it has a structured permission system. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm. Any other? Easily install updates and security patches, sir. Even in Windows, my system is up to date and I'm updating my system every day. It is also more secure. So your task for the next session is I need the answer like why Linux is more secure than Windows. I need this answer. Yeah, it's open source only. Open source in the sense anyone will have access and anyone can do modifications, anyone can do anything. But you said it's secure again. Open source in the sense anyone can modify that, right? It's open. You can change the source code also. You can implement some other services to them. You can do that. But though it is secure again, how? That is what my question. And then the next task for you guys is again, I need the BIOS. So what is BIOS and what is booting and what is file systems? So we have different file systems. So mostly we Windows use NTFS file system. Before that we have FAT file systems, file allocation table, and Linux use ext file systems. Apple use AFS, Apple file systems. So every different operating systems will have different file systems here. If you take your Windows file system, what these file systems do is it will manage your files. Like you're storing the information in this hard disk, right? So where it should be stored in the hard disk, everything. So you can see here, I'm using the file system NTFS. So if you take your pen drives or other olden devices, it use FAT. So what is this FAT? File allocation table? What are all these things? You need to tell me that. So even you're getting the information right when I go with this properties. So it is saying what is this uh, what is this IP? Means, sorry, where it is created, when it is modified, when it is accessed, where it is stored in my hard disk, what is the size of the file, the location, the format, everything it is given. So these are all managed by the file systems only. So what are the file systems? So mostly you can see the difference of file system is file size and volume size. So for example, you have, if you take FAT32, example, FAT32, the maximum volume size of FAT32 is 4 GB only. Means you can store only 4 GB of file. If you observe, you can't copy 5 GB of file into FAT32, what do you say, this to pen drive. You can't copy that into the pen drive there. example, I'm taking just an example. So you can see the maximum fat 12. We use this fat in your older devices, your pen drives, or in your floppy disk. We use them, these file systems. So if you take fat 32, it's a 4 GB, and you can see the volume size is 32 GB. So you can't copy more than 4 GB of file here. It says the file is too long like that. Okay, so that is what the differences you can see. NTFS, it supports more than some 1 TB of file size or GB of file size there, and volume size will be in petabyte in NTFS. So like that, you have file systems. Just go through these file systems and what was the latest file system we guys are using. Just find that and see what is BIOS, what is booting. All right. And in next session, we are going to set up a VMware. So we are going to set the VMware, and we are installing the Kali Linux, and I'm going to discuss about the some basic commands of Kali Linux. Okay. So make sure before coming to the next session, just go through this task, everyone. See why Linux is more secure than Windows. See that and go with the BIOS, booting, and file systems, and even the kernels. We have different types of kernel types. So just see them. This is your task. And make sure everyone have to do the document and submit that in the chat box. So whoever done the previous task, just submit that in the chat box now. Do that. Is that clear, everyone? Yes. I'll tell you. Just go through that. So like anyone, it's open source and track too easily. So yeah, track too easily. So then it is not secure, right? If it is easily trackable and if it is easily changeable, it is not the secure one. Find that and let me know. Like, see what are they. Okay. Ashwant, done with the task. Just go with your name. Okay, I have gone through with the notebook. Just put your name in the task. Okay. You done only with this part. Ashwant, you are getting the IP address. Okay, RIS minus the destination. 5 RIS. Okay. Mhm. Make sure give your name in this document. So then only I can able to understand who has given this document. Now I can see your name in this, but I can't see your name in the document, right? So while checking at the end who provided the who did the assignments at the time, your name should be there, right? Make sure this is done by Upendra. Make sure submit that in the PDF format only, but with your name. Right. Anyone? Anyone did with the task? Just submit that in the group or just submit that here in the chat box. Right. So just try to remember the task, everyone. Just go through this task. Okay. So what we discussed in today's session. So we discussed about the DHCP protocol, DNS, and OS architecture. Right. So tomorrow we'll go with the hypervisors, and then we'll set up the Linux machine. So in Linux, we are going to install Kali. Kali is one of the variant in Linux. We have different operating systems in Linux: Kali, Parrot, Mint, NetHunter. There are many different variants we have here, like Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 8. These are the upgraded, but here different versions, variants we have. So Kali is one of the powerful operating system here, where it comes with many inbuilt packages and dependencies, and it is a heavyweight operating system, so you can consider. Okay, so we are going to use the Kali. So to perform some exploitations, to perform some scanning, where it contains some inbuilt applications. So and it is open to work with all that applications. When it comes to the Windows, we have restrictions here. So you can't run some of the services in Windows. There will be restriction, and you can't modify them. When it comes to the Kali, it's an open source. You can do modification. You can run any kind of an application in that, and you can do all that activities. Okay. So that is why we are going to set up the Kali machine. So once we're done with that, remember you'll have an exam. So it's an MCQ base. You'll have an exam. Remember. So it's a quiz based scenario. So we'll see your performance in that. On complete networking, whatever we discussed till now, on that part we'll have the exam. Then I'll move on to the ethical hacking part. So then we'll start ethical hacking, the cybersecurity module. Okay. So this is what our agenda for the upcoming sessions. So prepare, everyone try to prepare the concepts what we discussed. So I hope you're getting the recording sessions too, or else try to recall the concepts what we discussed in the session. Got it? Is that clear, everyone? Actually, I don't have access to the recording sessions. The team will take care. I'll inform to them actually. So where can we get the recorded sessions? No idea for me also. I'll get back to you. I'll discuss with the team like how they are sharing the. I'll ask them and I'll update you. Mm, yeah, good work. Yeah, good one, man. Next, Deepika. Who is Deepika here? Whose task is this? Yashwant. The screenshot తీసి కాపీ పేస్ట్ చేసి పెట్టినావా? ఆ? దీపిక నీది కాదు యశ్వంత్, లైక్ దీపిక. స్క్రీన్ షాట్ తీసుకున్నారు ఫోన్లో, తను అప్లోడ్ చేసి డాక్యుమెంట్గా పెట్టి పంపిస్తుంది. ఏంటిది? దారుణంగా ఉన్నారు. Do some research and do the document. రాసి పంపించడం కాదు. See how they did, like how Nayab did. Can you see this? At least minimum. ఏదో రాసి స్క్రీన్ షాట్ తీసి పీడిఎఫ్ పంపిస్తే అయిపోతుందా? There is some research about that topic. You should do some research on the topic, right? ఏదో అడిగిన కానీ ఇట్లా తీసి పడేస్తే అయిపోతుంది. నా కోసం చేస్తున్నాడు టాస్క్ ఇక్కడ. You're doing the task for myself, for your sake or my sake. సో రీసెర్చ్ చేసి మీరు దాని గురించి తెలుసుకుంటారని టాస్క్ ఇస్తారు ఎవరన్నా. సో ఏదో చేసి ఇచ్చేయాలన్నట్టు ఇట్లా ఇచ్చేస్తే కుదరదు ఇక్కడ. Do that. Do some research, find new things, make a document like this. Everyone I'm telling you. ఏదో బుక్లో రాసుకొని స్క్రీన్ షాట్ తీసి పంపిస్తుంటే కుదరదు. I'm telling to everyone. So I'll go with the task. I'll see in this also how you're doing that. I'll consider that one only. No document submit చేసినంత మాత్రం నేను తీసుకోను అది. I'll see what the content is there in that document also. I'll look for that. See, I won't consider them. So can we write the content and make a document and send it? But it contains some content అనేది కొంచెం మంచిగా ఉండాలి. ఏదో 2 లైన్లు 3 లైన్లు రాసి పంపిస్తుంటే అవ్వదు. Make sure it should have a proper content in that. So the exam will be conducted once it's done with the Linux installation and the thing. Maybe in next session, next 2 sessions, maybe you'll have an exam. Prepare and ready for that. I won't tell you when I'll conduct the exam. It will be sudden. So prepare and come. Shirisha. ఒకటి చేసింది కాపీ పేస్ట్ చేసి పెడుతూనే ఉన్నారు. I think only the one like Nayab and Durgasri last session. Vendranath. They tried. Last లో పేరు చేంజ్ చేయాలి కదా. At least you have to change the name, right? Sheikh or she or something. It is Nayab only. He has given the name on that. This is what I am telling you. Don't go with the copy paste of others. Means, see, guys, whoever did the genuine, make sure to send the document privately. So if you're sending that in publicly, what they're doing, just they are downloading, changing the name, and they're sending that. So can you see this now? Whatever you did, they are changed just the document name and they're sending that. See, you won't feel anything by doing like this. Or do you don't know that I am checking the document here? Huh? Send this for me. Deleted the message. Here her name is Sheikh Shia. Right. So can we use both Microsoft and Linux distributed system? Yeah, you can use. That is what we are going to discuss in next session. See, try to do the assignments, everyone, whatever the task I'm giving. Make a documentation, do some proper research, make a document and submit that. Got it? Any doubts? All right then, guys. So thank you. Thank you for joining the session. Have a great day. See you next time. Attendance link, I think post, just please look into that. Yeah, they'll share the link. Just give the feedback and go.